Board.
Ready? Okay. Let's call the meeting to order and do the pledge. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Any adjustments to the agenda?
No, there's no adjustments. I will just note though that when you guys get to the consent agenda, you'll notice that there's no extracurricular on there. That's just because Altana hadn't released the reports yet. So I couldn't,
Because we're early in the month.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So they'll both be on, both of the extracurriculars will be on July. So that's okay.
All right. And it looks like no correspondence this month. Administrative report.
Madam Chair and members of the board, thank you. I first want to start off by apologizing. So I do think as you new members come on board, we have failed to some degree to set you up for success. And it's probably just because we were scrambling to get you on board. And then it's finding time to have maybe a retreat or at least a welcoming where the staff could come in and maybe we could have a donut together or some horse divorce or something to where we could sit around and get to know each other and just spend a little time. This small school, I think the staff would be very interested in coming, shaking your hand. With that said, tomorrow is just a half day and so the school ends. I'm going to try to push very hard to maybe have that at the beginning of school. So I would anticipate us coming to you and inviting you to some kind of social gathering here where we can at least tip our hats back to you and thank you for your efforts of coming on board. It's a tough job. And we want to recognize that and we want to get to know you and you guys spend some time together as well. So I do apologize for not making that happen. It probably should have happened a little earlier. I would always take Madam Chair's lead on that as well. I would never want to step on her toes or anything like that. But it would be important for me to at least welcome you into the Canyon Creek family because it is a tough job. And you might have to make a tough decision down the road. And it will be important for you to know the people that you're working for and leading. So I appreciate it. Want to honor your time and commitment. So as I hinted earlier, tomorrow's a half day. We release at 12. Today we had our 8th grade promotion. We had tears, and so to me that's one way to gauge kind of the students' connectedness to the building and teachers' connectedness to the building. Across the board, even some of our, what I would say, more challenging students, they were in tears, right? And they're saying goodbye to people that kind of held them to task and held them to learning and tried to keep high standards for them, and they still had that relationship. So to me, that's one gauge of just the social, emotional connectedness of this culture here, which is definitely, to me, a strong suit. The 8th graders went out and they had lunch together and they went to a couple of events, Lava Park and Casual Space, and spent some time together. And it came back and they said there wasn't one incident. They enjoyed their time together, so it was kind of cool. And then in the meantime, our students that were here, we kind of wrapped up the classrooms. We're getting our report cards put together because we send those out immediately. And school comes to an end very quickly. And teachers will want to get out of here pretty quick as well.
Our junior high finished their science projects today and got to release those.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
their bottle rockets, and so yeah, they've been doing some culminating events, and I feel that we've tried to teach from bell to bell and the entirety of the year and full court press it. Later this summer, I'm hoping to bring you kind of our deck sheet of where we are with some of our achievement. We've seen great achievement across the board, but I still think if you think we're hamsters on a hamster wheel, we got to run a little faster. We're getting better, but we're still not probably where I would like us to be in terms of achievement or the apex. We just got to improve, set our standards a little higher and get kids there. But our staff is committed. You know that we haven't had a lot of turnover. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about our money and interlocal and transferring some money, and I think part of what you'll wrestle with is, are we putting money where it needs to be in terms of improving achievement? And you'll have voice in that, and Trustee Madam Chair Gibbons here can attest to this. I've been pushing on having committees, I've been pushing on having a strategic plan so you all have levers to manage the building and lead it in the direction that you want, rather than just kind of say, hey, what are you doing here, what are you doing there? You can actually bring in an achievement committee if you assign one and say, why are reading scores where they are? Explain to us. And that's one way that you can lead a small school or even a large school if you were, say, District 2 as their board. That would be your lever. So we're trying to grow that. Hiring update. Even today we hired the CBEE, which is our preschool, is not connected to your work, but just to let you know, this kind of speaks to this community. Our new hire there, Miss Solar, she came in and she was welcomed by staff. She's in her room. She's already here and she's thinking about next year, so that's kind of cool. We hired our second grade position. We were posting a third grade position and we still haven't lit on a decision. I hinted with Madam Chair Gibbons that we might not hire a second section of third grade. That will put our class total up to 28, which is the max. I don't know if that's the best laid plans, but for right now, with the budget where it's at, that's kind of our current thinking. Now, if I put my achievement lens on, I probably will argue maybe we need to hire that second section. I don't know. We'll see what the numbers look like and kind of where your bill is, and I would take some direction there. Because we have to think about what next year looks like, if there are any kind of unexpected expenses, and we'll talk a little bit about those today as well, why we are sitting where we are. So we got to be able to manage that, balance that. So I'm on hold with that third grade section. Other than that, I need to hire a middle school teacher, math teacher, so if you know of anyone, direct them our way. We're still posting that and asking around. In the meantime, we put plan B and C into play a little bit. We're starting to have some conversations about just having our current team of middle school teachers and teaching math, all taking a section of math. Or I do know that our relationship in the co-op, the ACE co-op, there's been talk among these small schools of entertaining, bringing on a company that provides online coursework, and we would put a para in the classroom and then be point to point there where the teacher would come on a screen and teach math on a screen, and the para would kind of manage the classroom, and but at least they would get classroom content. Probably not the best. You know, we didn't have a lot of success during COVID with online teaching. This would look a little different, feel a little different, but I do know that kind of current trends in education, and even the union is wrestling with this. What does teaching look like down the road here when we don't have teachers and we can't fill these classrooms? So we got to get creative and see if we can't make it work. But that's what we're wrestling with a little bit right now. Evaluations are done. I will tell you, as we onboard the graduate profile, which Trustee Gibbons is familiar with, and Mr. Morton, Trustee Morton, will introduce that to you, but part of legislation is that we gotta embed the graduate profile into our classrooms. Not only do we have to assess it in our kids, but we have to evaluate it in our teachers. Are they teaching the graduate profile? We came up with a graduate profile, we had people vote on it, and tried to make it a community event, so we do have a grad profile. But it's stuff like critical thinking, are they citizens, those kinds of things. So how do you evaluate that? Just to put on the horizon, we might have conversation about us placing a new evaluation tool in front of you, you guys being able to look at that and then approving that for us to use into next year to evaluate our teachers. Right now we use a pretty generic instrument that probably doesn't push on maybe current pedagogy to the degree that we would like. But you're also talking to a gentleman that, look at effect size, it has to be a fairly decent appraisal model for teachers to change their behavior in the classroom. And there are models that do that, growth plans and those kinds of things, or appraisal models, just not a one-sheet evaluation that I kind of have right now. So know that that's on the horizon. I talked about vacancies and hiring update, same thing. In conclusion, as we tie down this year, just want to thank the 3 new members for coming on board, and we're excited to learn from you and be a part of this team. There are good people here growing and learning. Today you're going to have a conversation around beans and around money, and you know, I came on board last year, mid-year, so I've been here about a year and a half, and we're still kind of reeling from having a mass exodus of about 30 kids leave the system, right? And so it takes a while to recoup that, and we kind of hinted at that last year in our board meetings, and now we're kind of to the point where, all right, we made it through the fiscal cliff, and now we got to rebuild. So you'll be part of that, and it's kind of exciting to have you guys help us steer through that a little bit. So do ask questions. Thanks for being aboard, and if I can serve you differently, let me know. Emails individually is good. If we get maybe more than 3 emailing on a chain, probably not good. So we want to stay from that, away from that, but I can meet individually with you if you want to. If you have concerns, any kind of questions, those kinds of things, but ultimately in the end, you are a team and you'll have to kind of navigate that way. And we'll rely on Madam Chair's acumen to steer us in the right direction, okay?
I'm a good driver.
That's right. But thank you, appreciate it.
Any questions you want to?
I guess my question is, you mentioned the 3rd grade teacher, and if you, since I don't know the budget and everything, if you don't have a math teacher and you have to go the other route, Plan B or C, does that open up funds to hire the 3rd grade teacher, or is it different between us junior high and elementary?
It would open up some funds, definitely, unless we did something with a co-op, and like if we did an online thing, it wouldn't probably be the full expense of a teacher, but some funds would go in that direction. So yes, we could transfer that. It would be a solution, definitely. Right now, we are planning, and we are full court pressing the hiring of a middle school teacher. Just that's the best way, and that's kind of how we're arranging kind of our deck sheet in terms of expenses. But yes, if we don't hire a middle school teacher, that would open up a 3rd grade hire. What's tricky about that is if we hang on, hoping for an 8th grade teacher, and then here it is late July, and we make a decision, all right, we're just done with the 8th grade plan, we'll go to Plan B. We don't know if we'll be able to pull in a 3rd grade teacher teacher at that time. So we either have to make that decision soon and harvest early, probably, or.
So that brings me to the second point is
Yeah.
why not open the third grade teaching position now and take applications? Don't have to fill it.
And we've done that. So I have 3 people on the table, that were waiting to be interviewed. I have them on the phone, we're talking. I just told them I'm on hold right now until I get full endorsement. And after tonight's, and maybe down the road conversation with you. But yeah, we've posted the 2nd and 3rd grade. And it's been about 3 months almost.
Yeah, we just have a couple more pieces that we're just trying to get a couple answers on that will really determine that number, because with the budget on salaries, you really want to keep it by 80%, 80 to 85% of your budget on salaries is healthy. And so those last few questions is really gonna determine where that percentage lies. And those questions are gonna answer that 3rd grade question.
Okay.
And we're gonna have those answers this week. So we'll have it done in June. They have to be done in June, because our fiscal year ends in June. So it is coming. It's just not done today. That's the only thing. Yeah. It probably would have come if we would have been able to keep the regular board meeting date. It would have been on the packet. It's just because we had to move it early. So, yeah.
So, one other quick question. You said the max is 28 students per.
At that grade level. So just so you know, the max is K2 is 20. Then at 3rd grade it bumps up to 28, 3, 4, and 5. Then 6 through 8 is 30.
Okay. So 28, you have 28 students already, correct? So one family moves in the area, how does that affect everything? What's our grader?
So if they're out of district,
I'm saying in district.
okay, if they're out of district, we'd say we don't have room.
Right.
If it's in district, we would take them in and we would take a beam from accreditation. We get our wrists slapped.
I got a question piggybacking off this.
Sure.
So the answer, yes, pretty much the same questions I had. But if you do not hire a 3rd grade teacher, is there, I know we haven't got to the budget yet to say, but is there room in the budget for having help for that teacher? Because if you're at the max level, nobody likes to be maxed out. That's just drainage for one person, 28 kids is a lot.
Correct.
Is there room in the budget for help in that classroom for her?
So yes, and we're already funding a solution. So before you came on, we had 3 paraprofessionals that helped our special education teacher. We contemplating hiring last year a 2nd, 5th grade teacher to break up our 5th grade class this year, which could have been probably a pretty good decision in hindsight, just because that class has struggled based on COVID effect and everything, right? But we elected to keep that class intact and start the year. Well, it turned out that we needed some help, so I came to the board and we asked for another para to be hired. And we framed that para's position or the work function of that para to work in the 5th grade and help the 5th grade teacher in our intermediate wing once that classroom calmed a little bit, which it did. In fact, I'll be able to show you some of the achievement that happened in that classroom this year. It's been phenomenal. And I do think it's because the board made a decision to put some help in there. We are keeping that para, so we would move that para over to the 3rd grade or keep them in our intermediate to help break that class up as much as we can with another adult. So we do have an in-house solution.
So how many of those 28 students are out of district? Do you know?
I couldn't answer that off the top of my head, but I know some are.
Majority or not? Other than that?
I think the
I
majority of
know
our
that's where the
students
money
in
comes
this,
from, but if that's a lot of kids, that's not fair to the kids. I don't feel like it's fair for the kids that are in district to have that many kids in the classroom, because
Right.
they don't get the education they need.
right,
Coming from a classroom that size, like, and only having one teacher, it's just, you know what I
Sure.
mean?
a majority of our students are out of district, so if I took that, just
Yeah.
thinking in that ratio and I applied it down in the classroom, I would
I,
I would venture to say that maybe a majority of the kids are out of district, but maybe not.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes that happens in the middle level.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to kind of take a closer look at that. But I would agree with your thinking, and I do think that there are some answers on the table that eventually, after today's discussion and after you think about it, you'll be able to give us a little direction and at least support the direction that we all collectively want to go with that. Ms. Roberts is in a tough spot because I'm telling her to keep us around 80 or 85 in terms of all of our salary costs, you know, in comparison to the whole budget. We brought the STARS Act on, which put a little pressure on kind of our budget, even though the state is supporting it. We'll be able to do it for a couple of years, and then we're going to have another conversation about that. We don't, part of the reason why we're in the position that we're in now, when you have this conversation with Danny here, is unaccounted expenses, right? We had septic issues, we had some legal issues that we had to kind of resolve, and those expenses came in and really tightened things down, which will require us to request more out of our reserves, for lack of a better term. So if we put ourselves in a position where we bring on a third grade teacher and it tightens that budget down, you just don't know, right? It's kind of a gamble to some degree, and it's our responsibility to keep this little district fiscally sound, but it's also our responsibility to provide a great education for our kids. And so your point's well taken, and I think we just got to wrestle with that. And I will, you know, as your employee, we'll do what you want us to do. So give it some thought and keep coming with the questions.
no, thanks for answering. I just
No.
need some, just want some clarification on a couple of things.
Sure. That's what we're here for.
The only other thing I'll mention is when it gets into out-of-district kids, you have to watch it because the laws changed during not this legislative session, but the last legislative session. And so it makes it a lot harder to say no. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's totally.
yeah,
To augment that, some of the work that we hope to be doing in late July with our strategic plan will give you some tools, or at least some levers to say
To
no
say
out
yeah.
to out of district. And it would be because of our fiscal situation and our class size, and you guys get to put some verbiage around that, to where we can say no to kids more easily. Right now, it has to
it
just
really
be
changed.
class size or behavior, that kind of
I'm all for it if it brings funds into the school. I
thing.
mean, I just want to make sure it's fair for the kids that are in the district.
It just puts them in hard
Yeah.
spots like this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm teaching a class right now, and one of the trends that they really encourage superintendents to think about is to tear down the walls to admission, right? If kids want to be educated, let them in, right? And figure out ways to make that happen. It's easy for authors to say that kind of stuff, and I kind of philosophically agree, but we also have a school to run, right? And all those things too, so.
One more for the money wise. What's the price for that teacher, like the online deal? Do you know that?
We don't know that yet,
Okay.
we haven't received a quote, sorry.
That's all.
Any other questions? Okay. On, to new business, the first item is reorganization of the committees. So with this, we have new board members, we do this every year, also just look at the committees we have, we can add, subtract the actual committee, and then we share the responsibility of sitting on those committees, for the district. So Danny probably has, okay, so we only have 3 right now. We have a levy committee, a negotiations committee, and a finance committee. In the past, I know we've also had safety committee, but we've transitioned that more to teachers and school base instead of on the board. What are your thoughts on those 3 committees? Questions? Levy is about looking at running a levy each year, what worked well before, or what didn't. Gathering the information, making a plan, you know, what are we gonna do, what makes sense, and then, you know, understanding the limitations or rules surrounding that as board members, and where there's other opportunities outside of the school board to help with that. So it just depends on the year and the feeling, sentiment of the board, or the passion really of, are we gonna push really hard? This past year, the school, from a board perspective, we took more of a step back than in all the years prior that I've been on the board, just for different reasons, but that's for the committee to discuss and come up with a plan, and you meet with Danny and Mr. Hornby and
Sometimes the PT.
whoever wants to come and discuss what that is. Negotiations committee is responsible for meeting with the union, the teachers union, and their representatives, and talking about any issues or things going on with their contracts. We just completed a new contract. Was that a year ago already?
Last year.
It was last year. So then are we coming up again, or do we have 2 years?
26, 27.
26
of that year.
Okay, so it's when we had our memorandum of understanding this year related to the STARS Act, that is a sit down with them to talk about those things, concerns. If there's a concern or something changes, then you meet with them. Finance is exactly that. It's front and center, having extra conversations about when preliminary numbers come out in preparation for our budget meetings and setting things for the next year. If there's something unexpected comes up, then you're gonna sit down and kind of be that representative to meet with Danny and Mr. Hornby and understand and information gather. And then all the committees bring their information back to the board meeting, and that's where we vote. So it's not, they don't make decisions outside of the board meetings, but represent the board in those meetings. All of these are, how often do you meet for finance?
We try to do it once a quarter.
Once a quarter. Negotiations is not as needed, yeah, and levy is just depending on the direction the board wants to take. It can be many or very few times, usually after the first of the year, so it's in the second half of the year. So there's not a huge commitment for any one committee. Question?
What are we looking for representation wise? 1, 2, 3 people? 2 per?
2 per committee. If you get 3, I mean, it's a quorum. You can if you want to, if you're really interested in it, because we have to post them anyway.
Yeah. At least 2 would be great.
What's your vacancies on each one of them?
Well,
Let's
it's
see.
a reorganization.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
we can scratch
Change that
everything and
part.
start over.
We better call Donnie, huh?
Or just assign it.
Just assign.
Yeah.
That's what happened last time.
We
If
should
you're
assign
not
them all.
here, you got assigned.
Do we nominate Donnie?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, does anyone have a burning desire to be on one of these committees?
Well, are all of them good? Do you
Yeah,
want
do
to add
you
any?
like
Do you want to
these?
scratch any?
think they all sound important. Obviously, you have the most experience, Amy, so I'm gonna kind of defer to you.
I think at any time we can add a committee if a need arises, so I think this is a great place to start and pare it down to the minimum. Anybody? A burning desire?
Finance will be something that I'd be a step into.
Anybody else?
I'll do that levy one.
Levy?
Put Donnie down for that levy one too. We're just gonna volunteer.
Wise.
I'll do the levy and the negotiations.
You can put me down for negotiations. But you should put Donnie down too.
Well,
just if-
so far I'm not
yeah.
on any, okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
You guys are just taking them all, yay.
You can hang out with me.
So, I will definitely be on finance and, do we, yeah, if, yeah. I'm happy to attend negotiations if you want to.
You can take me out then.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to help you out.
So I attended, I've attended a negotiations here at the end of the year when we knew we were transitioning board a little bit, and, just as a bystander, I was part of the public, for the meeting, just so we didn't have a quorum at the table, but. Yeah. So I can still participate.
Martin, I mean, if you're interested in the negotiations, you can always just come as a
Yeah.
public, walk through. Like I said, it's not this year that we're having it, but
No,
it is always
Thank
good to
you.
watch.
I just wanted to make sure Amy didn't have her plate too full.
Thanks.
So, Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
could interject.
Yeah.
Members of the board. So if I can add to this a little bit, once again, if we complete a strategic plan, in that strategic plan, there should be some action items that you guys coalesce around. It could be safety, it could be school improvement, whatever. Right now, we have 2 school-based committees that need a little traction based on kind of direction from you, which will come through the strategic work. What we've tried to do is start recognizing teachers doing good work and kids doing good work, and we have a section where we honor that at a board meeting. But eventually, I would like to get to the point where through the action plan that you guys craft, we bring these committees in from the school-based side and they report to you. And so you might have a goal that we're going to improve our achievement by X amount or whatever. You would ask them to come in and just say, how you doing? What's getting in the way of it? What do you need help with? So then you can turn around and give me direction, right? And that's one way that you can kind of place your input into the district. And that's a real effective way because everybody's kind of marching together. So we get my committee coming in, right, on safety, and they report to you. If you ask them hard questions like, how do you feel? Is it safe around here? What's going on? What do we need to do? You know, that kind of thing. And they can present data to you. Even like Ms. Morales comes in and gives you a behavior report. Some of that could be handed off to the safety committee, and they could be reporting on that. And it's one way to flatten out and get everybody involved in a large district or even a small district. So that's really what I'm kind of pushing on now. That's just my view of the world. As you get your feet into Canyon Creek, you might think a little differently about that, and you would direct me so. But if there's a committee, school-based committee that we need to start or resurrect or whatever to give you the ability to drive a strategic plan into the classroom, create it, and we'll do it. That's kind of the direction we want to go. So a board meeting will be very little of us. It would be teachers talking to you and recognizing kids doing good things.
So, yeah, so we'll need, an action item, so now can we just say as Okay, perfect. Do we have a motion to accept the reorganization of committees to include levy, negotiations, and finance as presented?
Yeah, you're gonna have to put up the verbiage if I push, right?
I so moved. Just-
I so moved, there we go.
Do we have a
Yeah.
second?
Second.
Okay,
Thanks, Amy.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's how I like to do it.
yeah, thanks.
All right. So
Okay.
you can see it too.
Any additional questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
So I will retype that up and send it out to everybody.
Awesome. Okay, so our next item is the out-of-district students. So,
A lot of these were students that are already here this year. A through DD.
oh, okay. I like
There's a lot.
A through DD.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
it'll take a while.
Can we just say it that way? It should be.
They have to be individual.
Just,
Every single board I've been.
Why does it have to be individual?
All right, well,
I got a question, why does it have to be individual? Since
That
there's
is-
there's no names associated with them,
No,
why can't we just make a motion to vote for students A through DD on the alphabet, a total of 30 of them, in one motion and vote for it?
the auditors do not like it that way.
I'm sorry.
The auditors don't like it that way. That's fine.
Which auditors?
we're gonna come to that too, but we have our bookkeeping.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's not on our fight, but
No, but I mean, we're gonna have to talk about audit.
yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
I'm not exactly sure why, if it's part of the law with MTSBA or not, but it's the same reason with hiring. You can't just say all the names in one motion. You have to have it separate motion every single time. I'm not sure why, but they like it separately.
For the purposes of accepting or not accepting, so that is one area that you'd wanna be very clear. And I think that's why they like it outlined, even though we don't know. There is an occasional recommendation not to take a student, and so that would be tied to a letter as well. I think that's why, that's my, just to remove the gray, if there was ever a question. Like, when did you, if something legal ever came up, I think that just removes that. Because then we know as a board, each one has been reviewed and evaluated by our superintendent for approval to this.
And they can probably go back and see every single motion and how it was voted on.
So all of these students, they're invited to attend the meeting too. So there could be public comment on any of them.
Understood,
We've
but I
had that
mean-
happen once.
My question on that again is, obviously there's nobody here. If there was public comment or whatever, it would still not be in reference to a name, it would be in reference to a letter. So, I mean, in the effort of streamlining it, keeping us for 30 minutes while we sit here and vote for everybody, why can't the motion be to vote for, can we make a motion that we vote en masse, and if all four of us agree, then we make the one motion, one vote?
I personally just have been here long enough. I guess I would feel more comfortable hearing what the auditor had to say about that and their reasoning before deciding that. With that,
If I could interject.
Yes.
Let us get you more information on
Yeah.
that, and,
I'm
For
gonna be at
this
summer
go-around.
conference next week, right, with MTSBA and legal, so I can just ask in person why the need is for it.
And that's fine, well, and I'll be honest, one of the worst things that I hate hearing is this is the way we've always done it,
sure.
and not having an understanding as to why we do it that way.
Mhm.
So, I mean, and to streamline our process, and I get the individuals, when we get down what we're doing staff, we have names for those people, we can do those individually. But where it's a student that we we have no reference to who that is referenced to. And I'm pretty sure, based on the last one, we're probably all gonna approve them. I just don't see why, even at an auditor's standpoint, that they would need to be done individually,
Good question.
but.
We'll get the answer.
Are we comfortable doing it tonight, or would everyone prefer to wait? We have that.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever we're doing.
Okay. You're not answering. I guess I'm just in a position where if we delay, then we can delay other processes within the school, so that would be my recommendation, is that we do it tonight, the way that we, have been asked by the auditors, and if we can get more information, then when we have our next round, cause we probably will, before the end of the summer, we can change our ways if we feel like that's important.
I'm fine with doing it the way we did last time, just saying if we could change the process, let's
Yeah.
look at it.
Appreciate that. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve out-of-district student A?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve, out-of-district student B.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student C.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student D.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student E.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student F.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student G.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student H.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student I.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student J.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student K.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student L.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student M.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student N.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student O.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, wait. Do we have a motion to approve out-of-district student P?
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student Q.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student R.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student S.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student T.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student U.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student V.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student W.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student X.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student Y.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student Z.
I so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student AA.
I so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Do we have a motion to approve out-of-district student BB?
I so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student CC.
I so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve out-of-district student DD.
I so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wait a minute.
We get them all? Did we get, that was DD, right? Yep. Okay, good. All right, thank you. Next new business item is fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 audit summary.
So I just printed off the pieces that were the findings. I do have the full audit report that I will house in the office if you do ever wanna come look at it. It's quite a few pages, but you are welcome to look at it, as is anybody in the public. So I'll just briefly go over these. I'm not gonna read them word for word. I'm gonna go over what the auditors and I actually talked about with each of these. So the first thing I'll just say is the two findings that I did, the last audit that I had, which was the 22 audit, were not repeated on this one. This audit was a 2-year audit that we did. It was for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, so it was extensive. The auditor that I had, it was his first time doing a 2-year audit too.
Because usually, just for a little background, we've always done them every year. The requirement is every 2 years, but this school has always opted for every year.
Yes.
Just to be
Easier.
more
It's
efficient, I
easier.
guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
The reason that it was done as a 2-year audit, why it was weighted and held off that 1 year, is because we didn't have a superintendent at that time. So Mrs. Morales and I were sharing the superintendent duties. And that was when they wanted to do the audit, and there was no way. I was very frank with the board that there was no way to be able to do the audit at the same time. Thankfully, Mr. Hornby came on just a little bit after that, but the decision had already been made to hold off on the audit. So it was a 2-year audit process. So this first one, it says student activity. So what it says is, for the cause is that the spreadsheet is not, for the extracurricular activity, is that it's not kept up to date with the bank statements. That's what their cause is listed here, and that their recommendation is to keep it up on a monthly basis. It is kept up on a monthly basis with the bank statements. What was actually talked about with the auditors is the way that it's done. So that's when I brought up, and when we started looking at possibly using Black Mountain to maybe use Black Mountain, which is our finance software, to move our activity software into there. It wasn't fiscally responsible. So the auditors and I went through a process on how to update the software that's getting used. Just to, with previous business managers that were in, it wasn't being updated as it should be. And so there were inconsistencies in the previous accounting that was in there. So what they want me to do is pull as far back as I can for the bank statements and all of that, and basically re-go through it all. And just, yeah, it's a big project, but we really talked about it. They know that it's gonna take a while to do this, so they're not expecting it to be done by July 1st. They know it's a big project, but we discussed it. They know that it's basically a prior year issue they had to list it as a finding because it has to be corrected going forward. Going with that with the student activity receipts, you are not gonna like this one because of what you said previously, but the reason that this one is on here, cause is because there's not a receipting documentation being done with the student activity fund that they want done. The recommendation is obviously to have a book with pre-receipting done for the extracurricular activity. And the reason for that is because the school has never done that in the past. And I know you don't like that answer. So that's an easy one to solve. We just buy a pre-receipted book and start fixing that. By the time that this book actually came out, we already have the books. So that one's already fixed. So that one's an easy one. We actually discussed that even further with the auditors on how to even take it a step further with the student activity ledger and adding in the petty cash in there too and the revenues in there too. So once the student activity fund gets more corrected and that big project is a bit more finalized, that report that that you see every month, it's not in there this month, but that you see every month where it has the checks listed for the student activities, it's actually gonna have the revenue in there too. It's gonna have the petty cash in there too. It doesn't have it in there right now. But we just figured that it's just a better checks and balances because you have the Excel file that lists revenue for the extracurricular, but there's no other checks and balances right now that shows you what that revenue is. I know what that revenue is because I just happen to be putting it in the Excel file under notes so that I have an accounting listing of what that is besides the documentation that goes from the bank. We wanted to take it a step further. So there is a little bit more to that receipt one than just buying a pre-book. We wanted to take it a step further. Going on to the second page for the miscellaneous fund reconciliation. This one is our Fund 115, which deals with any miscellaneous funds or our grants. So with this one, when they were going through it, they noticed that our, you can't just, like I can't just use Black Mountain and put the revenues and the expenditures just into Black Mountain and go off of that. You also have to have a separate spreadsheet tracking the miscellaneous fund. It seems a little redundant because it gets tracked in Black Mountain 2 or whatever software program you're using. But you do have to have a separate spreadsheet tracking these. The one that we have is a bit out of date. So they just want to update it. That's what this finding is updating the spreadsheet so that it has every single grant. They've noticed a couple of the grants that are on there right now we don't have anymore. Some of the ESSER needed to be a bit updated, and even though we don't have ESSER anymore, ESSER's completely done, it needs to be updated. So that's what this one is. Again, it's an easy fix, but it has to be listed on here. And then this revenue one is, this one is completely on me, but it's also because I didn't know that you don't do this. So this one I'm learning. I found out at my last clerk's meeting how to fix this one. This is our interest charges that come from the county every month. You have interest that gets allocated. I was putting it where the previous business manager, we have a spreadsheet that shows you how to do the interest allocation for certain funds. Like I said, completely on me. I thought it could only go to those funds that were on that spreadsheet calculation. That is not the case. I found out the hard way with our auditors, and he felt bad for me. He goes, "Oh no, you don't only put it in those funds. It can be to any cash fund." Oh, okay, that makes more sense. It's just going, like, one of it is going to a fund that's not active anymore. You don't put interest to a fund that's not active anymore, which makes sense when you hear it. So that makes sense. So I asked another, business manager to send me what her interest allocation spreadsheet looks like, so that I can update ours. So again, it's an easy fix. It just has to be on here. So when I had our meeting with the, with our auditors, they weren't worried about any of these. I mean, the one is a big project, but it's a project that they felt was doable. I'm not worried about any of these. You know, as Kelly likes to joke, none of them are orange jumpsuit worthy. They're all easy fixes, so auditors aren't worried about them. I'm not worried about them. They're just, those things that have to be corrected. Does anybody have questions about any of these?
Chris, I have a question. So why do they need the redundancy between Black Mountain and a separate spreadsheet? What's the justification for that?
Because they feel that the spreadsheet can go into more detail. So what 115 does is with your grants, you have to have more detailed coding than just say like your general fund. You have to have more extensive coding with them. And with grants, it's more specified on what you're allowed to spend it on. It's way more restrictive, and it's usually, especially if it's federal, it's really restrictive. So it just requires more looking at, and so they usually just want more detail. And so they want it on a separate spreadsheet because you can add that detail in. Whereas in Black Mountain, I only have what they have pre-put in there that I can put in there, if that makes sense. It is redundant. And we've had talks between other business managers, but it is what they ask for because you can add more detail in there.
So basically, Black Mountain isn't sufficient
It's
to do
Black
what
Mountain,
we need.
it's Tyler, it's any software program, it's just they want that extra detail. So,
So they don't make a software program where you could add details into it?
not that I know of that any
They're out there.
school
They're out
is
there.
using
There.
in Montana right now.
Do they have to be state approved, or do they have to be approved by certain?
By a state,
Yeah.
not that I know of, it just is harder to find certain trades, so like Black Mountain is in the state, Tyler is in the state, so like getting that help and stuff is
Okay.
easier, or getting the training,
Okay,
but you don't have to be approved, like,
Okay.
yeah.
I was gonna say, my simple self-business deal does that for me. You know what I mean, where it makes a spreadsheet where I can input whatever, and it probably costs a fraction of what that counts.
I think there's just, that program with others are just designed for school.
Yeah. You're probably integrated with different programs through Black Mountain then, huh?
Yeah, it does talk to certain programs that I use throughout the school.
So, what we'll need to do now is, approve the audit summary. And items, the audit as presented, she just gave us the findings, but like she said, the full audit is available for anybody if you wanna look at it. Do we have a motion?
Can I pause real quick? So
Yeah.
obviously there was solutions presented. Are we voting on some sort of like solution expectation and when they'll be completed by, or is that part of this vote, or are we just voting on the finding?
So the board just votes more on what is presented by the auditors. The solutions and the corrections are what I have to submit to the state and to the auditors back.
Okay,
Yeah. So that part, the board doesn't even have a part of, the state does.
so I guess where I would drive towards that is, say these same things were an error next year. We do the audit again. Where does the responsibility lie then? If we're not.
It's a heavier funding with the auditors, and that lies a lot more on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that drives back to you, Dan.
Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Okay.
It would show up in our evaluation.
So we're holding you to task then, basically.
Yeah.
All right. fair enough.
This is very much my homework.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I want. Okay. That,
Do we have a motion to accept the audit as presented with findings?
I so move.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Next item is fiscal year 25 end of year budget summary information.
So these are gonna be the one really, really tiny spreadsheet and then the one that I printed off. Okay.
Glasses.
I'm nearsighted, so this looks great. So, like Kelly had paraphrased, we did have some pretty unexpected expenses this year with budgeting. On the black and white one, like I said, just look at the committed year-to-date column and then the original appropriation column. But I'm going to start with the colored spreadsheet first. At the top, what I added on there right now, because in Black Mountain, it's going to say that we have used 99.39% of our budget. That's because we just requested our title monies, so it's not in there right now showing as revenue, and that's what that add back in 51,047 is. So you need to add that back in there because it is coming. We're just balanced through April right now because we don't have the May reports from the county yet. So just know that that revenue is coming back in there to offset some of our title expenses, which usually goes to our title salary, the benefits, her supplies. Okay, so we've actually used year to date the 96%. So right now we have that 62,000 and some change available left. And this is just the general fund, okay? So just note this is just our general fund, which is our heavy hitting fund, okay? It's where almost everything comes out of, okay? The other thing that I'm going to mention so that you don't freak out when you start seeing any of these little negatives on the available appropriation line, because I know you're looking at it. Those are our budgeted lines, okay? So that's just us budgeting those lines. That doesn't go to the state. That's just us budgeting internally saying, hey, that's what we project we might spend on that line this year. So that's not, you know, a ding anywhere. That's just our internal budgeting. So if it does go negative, it's not a bad thing, okay? It's just like, oh, we need to adjust that next year. Where it does become an issue is if the overall general fund budget goes negative. That's when it is bad, and that's when it is a problem with the state, because you cannot have a negative budget, a negative fund at the end of the year, okay? So I just did want to mention that if you're seeing these negatives on the side, please don't start worrying. That's just an internal thing. It just means that we need to adjust those next year, okay?
Auditors like knowing what we spend our money on,
Line by line.
line by line.
They do. Okay. So with that, getting into having us at 96% right now, our end of year is the end of June. So we're almost there, okay? We have paid all of our certified staff. Their last day is tomorrow, so they have their triple pay already done. So certified staff is completely paid out. Their benefits are paid out for the rest of the year. So the only things that are still left to pay for the rest of our fiscal year are any claims left, admin for the rest of the year, and then the classified. And classified do have their vacation payouts for the last paycheck, okay? So that's what we have for the last bit of the year. Okay. When Kelly said that we had those unexpected expenses come up with our general fund, I'm gonna go into those a little bit and what those biggest contributing factors are, because you can't read it on this, and this sheet doesn't tell you what they are. Okay, I mean, it tells you field trips or travel out of district. That doesn't really tell you what it is, okay? So I combed through all of our claims for the year and pulled out what our biggest contributing factors are, what really, really hit over the budget of what it was supposed to, or what was extremely unexpected for the year that kind of hit us out of the mark for our budget this year. We had extra health insurance premiums - COBRA in the year. We had extra lawyer services, which flowed from last year that we were trying to complete. Our election advertising was a lot higher than it has been the last 3 years. And I want to say like 3 times higher. And we went to the same place that we always have.
This for the levy you're saying?
Yeah, so levy and election, they're tied together. And these are legal, yeah, this is legal postings that we have to do. So we can't get out of those. Our overtime was really high. Our audit total, even with it being a 2-year and us knowing that it was a 2-year, it was significantly higher than we projected it was going to be. With adding, and this is where that conversation came to play earlier of the give and take of having our budget at that 80-85%, but also providing the support that we need. The number of paras and long-term paras that we had, because we added that extra para, it did push that line item over budget because we added that one. But the other devil's advocate of that line item is we really needed the support of that one, so that was a give and take. Our maintenance replacement supplies, that went really over budget, but like Kelly said, we had a lot of maintenance issues this year with sewer, unexpected sewer expenses, unexpected line of a pipeline expenses, just replacement supplies in the building. And that is not with our windows, that is not with our roof. Those were paid out of either ESSER or in our, not the reserve, but the co-op. I think of it as 161 fund, but it's the building fund, sorry, the building fund. So it wasn't even our big expenses with the maintenance that even pushed it over. And then the last one was our library dues and fees, and that's more like any like online service charges. But that one could, I want to paraphrase that one with saying that I feel like the library one might be more that she didn't add services. That one could be more, I budgeted that one. I don't feel like she added any more services. I feel like that one was just misbudgeted, because I don't feel like she came to me with more services needed, but it did go over budget. So when I talked to Kelly about this and we started looking at those numbers and how far they went over the budget, and we're like, oh, well that's all of it, right? You know, that's it right there. Those numbers make sense on why it pushed us, you know, and why we're already at 96%. Because when I looked at last year, we weren't at 96% at right this time. And we were able to add money into the interlocal fund instead of needing to take money out of the interlocal fund. And like Kelly said, our interlocal fund is like a reserve account. That's the best way to describe it. It's kind of like a savings account. The other thing that I'll mention is it wasn't shocking that we're coming to you needing to take money out of the interlocal fund at the beginning of the year. And I know this is a different board, but at the beginning of the year, that was already projected that we were going to have to take money out of the interlocal fund this year due to it being coming off of a fiscal cliff and coming off of a lower A and B. And our A and B is how much student population we have, how much enrollment we have, which drives our budget, which we'll kind of get into more at the next slide. So coming off of those two things, we had a lower budget than the previous year. So we already knew that it was going to be a Band-Aid year. The last thing that I'll mention that was one of the bigger contributing factors with this end of year being slightly higher than we're used to being is our lunch fund, which is Fund 112, went a lot higher than it normally does. So Fund 112, our lunch fund, the food fund, never is able to pay for itself, and that's with any school because of two things. The school nutrition program sets a certain limit on what you're allowed to charge students for lunches, but then they also have a certain calculator on what they reimburse you back for paid lunches. So it's this catch-22. So you never make enough money back, and you're not allowed to charge enough money either for covering your lunch fund. So the amount that we get back every month doesn't even cover what we need to cover for our staff that is in our kitchen. And that's not because we're paying our kitchen staff too much. That's any school. But I will say with the amount of things that we're doing in our kitchen, while they are great things for our students, I do think that we need to scale them back. Because that is what caused it to go so excessive this year in our lunch fund. And what you have to do when the lunch fund goes basically in the negative, you can, because the general fund doesn't have the same limits and requirements that the lunch fund does, you can transfer money from the general fund to the lunch fund. And that's what every school has to do at the end of the year, because this is what happens at the end of every year. But that's what the other biggest contributing factor is. The amount that was projected to need to set aside for the lunch fund was way higher than what was projected. So all of these contributing factors in there is now causing us to need to ask the board to consider pulling money out of the interlocal, which we knew that this was going to be an ask, but it's higher than what was originally thinking that that number was going to be. The good news was that Kelly and he kept bouncing off of me so that I was able to keep working on it the whole last week and this week. We were able to find quite a few things that could be recoded to either Fund 115 or to 161, which 115 is our miscellaneous funds grant and 161 is our building reserves grant, or funds, sorry. They could be recoded to take claims, to take things that we've paid for and move them to other funds that they are allowed to be in. Things that you paid for, sometimes they can be in different funds. You're just allowed to put them in, it becomes your choice. Most of the time they go into your general fund because that's where you pay for it. But because we were able to do this homework, we were able to take some of these things and alleviate our general fund. So now this number, while still higher than what we originally thought that it was going to be, it's lower than it was a week and a half ago. So we have done all that we have, all that we can to make this this number as low as we can, for this discussion.
So, what is the number we're talking?
So yeah, going, and I know this kind of flows into the interlocal discussion that
Okay.
is a little bit farther down, but I'll just say it so that you guys can ruminate on it while we get there. So the interlocal fund right now is sitting at $356,000, 142. And projected, what would cover the expenses needed, not getting it to zero, like having a positive balance in there. And I'm not meaning like $50,000 positive balance. I'm meaning like it's at least a positive balance, like in the lunch fund and stuff. It would be $141,875. So that would leave the interlocal fund with a positive balance of $214,267. So I know this isn't the interlocal fund talk right now, but they do flow in together. So just keep that in the back of your brain for when we do get to that talk later on, please. So I know this isn't a fun talk right now with the end of your budget. But that is where it is sitting right now. Those are the things that hit the general fund the most. Kelly and I have been talking about it the last 2 weeks on these things. Yeah.
What was the item you said before legal?
So the one before the lawyer services was the extra health insurance premiums and COBRA.
And what, cause how did we get to that? What changed there?
So we had, when some people left, it went on to COBRA. And that's new, cause I've never had anybody elect that before. The premiums also went higher this year.
But we did know that.
Yeah, so that, I'm not talking about the one-off.
Okay.
I'm talking about the monthly premiums are higher, and so the way that it's structured on Blue Cross Blue Shield, the amounts are higher right now, so it's having to pay it more. Is that making sense?
No.
So I'm talking to Mitch about it right now.
Okay.
It's been since September.
Didn't we sign I feel like we usually review what the plans are gonna be and what the cost, but
Yep,
are
so-
we just looking at what the employees are paying?
Yeah, so that's what this part is. I'm not talking about the overall like premium payment that you guys look at, that you'll look at in July,
Okay.
when the new insurance rates come out. This I'm talking about is literal employee rates that I'm doing with payroll. Yeah,
How does that impact our budget if they're paying?
so they're not paying though, it's coming out of benefits that the employer is paying.
So they're,
Because they have a monthly benefit amount from the employer.
okay. So did we not have a fixed amount of money for those premiums?
We do. And that's why I'm trying to get this narrowed down with Mitch. Because when you look at the spreadsheet that gets attached to every monthly section that I do for Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's supposed to even out with what the premium payment is that they elect, whether it's family or whatever it is. And then it's supposed to equal, minus the benefit amount if they have to pay extra. It's supposed to equal onto Blue Cross Blue Shield what the bill is. Every month since September, it is not equaling. And we are needing more. And September is when I was gone, and I had to figure this out because they were wanting to cancel. Because all of a sudden our bill wasn't being paid. And they did this 3 times when Mitch and I were trying to figure this out. And after the third time, when it wasn't being paid, because there was always this extra little amount, because I was sending in
The
what
agreed upon.
the agreed upon amount was. They told me if it was not paid in full every month, they would completely cancel it and we would not be able to come back. So Mitch and I have still been trying to figure this out every month and get an answer from them, because he doesn't necessarily work from Blue Cross.
No,
He is our head company,
Yeah,
you
the,
know,
who?
Painwest.
Painwest.
They're not, they're called Marshall McLean now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they changed.
They're
it. But they're the
middle
ones that
man.
they actually do.
the broker.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that is the whole story of that one, and I didn't want our employees to lose their insurance because of this, while we've been figuring this out.
Hmm. Yeah, that would. Well, I mean, just on a side note, I am aware of other businesses. Blue Cross has been a nightmare this past year. So that that doesn't help us in this situation, I guess. I don't know what we could have done mid-year with that.
Since we're coming up on that renewal right now,
Yeah,
I'm kind of forcing the issue and saying, I have to have an answer
well,
Yeah,
and
while it's the renewal
I
time.
think that the teachers union is gonna have to be aware that, cause if we're agreeing to a certain number.
Yeah.
If it's beyond that, then they're gonna have to pay more. It's gonna get past the teachers.
Except that's not what is listed in the master agreement.
Okay, so that was my, what does it say in there?
So in the master agreement, it's where you have to take the highest plan, the one that has the highest deductible,
Uh-huh.
you take that, and then you take, so you take the one that has the highest deductible, and you take the self amount that's listed. You take the difference between the two, so you take this year's amount, you take that next year's amount of the self amount. You take the difference of the two, split that in half, and add it on, and that's their new benefit amount. That is what is listed in the master agreement. So it's still an agreed upon amount. And so that's what was agreed upon, and that's how they got their 689-cent benefit amount for this year. And then all of a sudden, it's not, covering what's supposed to be covering. Yeah, so I'm trying
So
to
if
force
it's not
the issue with
resolved
Mitch.
on the insurance side.
It's not Mitch's fault, like, it's not
No.
Marshall McLean. He's trying to help me with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Yeah.
But if the insurance is charging us more, we weren't informed about that. The employees, our teachers won't incur that expense.
That's why it's
It's
coming
coming out of
out
this
of our
one.
budget.
It would seem to me that we would need that resolved.
That's what I'm trying to do with Mitch.
How long can we put off the vote on the interlocal, the 142? 142 interlocal approval.
It has to, it would have, it can't, if it's gonna be part of this end of year. Because Roger that, oversees the interlocal shuts down the budgets, like, in a week and a half.
So we could recommend the approval of the interlocal, address this issue internally, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield might resolve this and credit us back.
I mean, I can't confidently say, I don't know if they will. rates the best that I could after getting told that they were gonna cancel it after
Yeah, no, I
I did
understand
want
that.
their employees to lose it.
I
halfway
think
through the year.
maybe we should have had that information sooner, just so we could help if there's anything we can do, to push. Or mid-year, look for other options. I mean, we've never had to do that, but I don't know what that would be, if that'd save us any money in the long run, but I think that would have been just so that you aren't fighting that battle alone, and because it was hitting our budget so hard, just knowing that, I think. Because if we, and the other part is, if we're getting hit, we can get an answer from Blue Cross that rates did go up, then we might have had an MOU to change the share, and it would have hit the teachers, which is never favorable, but on some level anyway. I guess because I don't have, I'm throwing things out there that I don't have all the information, but
Was there anybody put on that plan in the middle of the year? Like, was there people that were hired that might have been put on there that made the rates go up for the insurance? I mean, if you have a rate locked in, very seldom do they hike the rates in the middle of an agreement, unless there's additional people added.
And then I guess I just wonder too, with, did you say his name was Marshall? Mitch. What the rates that we were presented from them, I mean, what kind of agreement do they have? I mean, were those not locked in? Was that something? And that was maybe misrepresented to us. Insurance has been tough this year.
So, I guess my question is, I don't understand Mitch, what's his job? Is he like a middleman in the deal?
Yeah, so we have well, it was Payne West, but we had shopped a couple of years ago for new rates, new companies to get the best deal and what options. And they could offer choices at the time that were a range of options that could appease our staff, but also had a plan that was within our budget. And so I call them a broker, I don't know, but they can look at lots of different healthcare companies, so it's not just, but yeah, so he's the rep.
So he's just an insurance broker,
Yep.
basically, right?
Mhm.
So they came to us, the school, with this insurance and said, this is what it's gonna cost per year. And then all of a sudden, we're seeing a 30% increase,
That,
and he doesn't have any answers.
And this, what we had allocated at 41 cost us 56, that's the line item we're looking at.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Something doesn't sound,
Now, when we pay the bill, does it go straight to Blue Cross Blue Shield, or does it go to?
It goes straight to Blue Cross.
did Mitch increase his percentage?
Yes.
Or he gets paid through Blue Cross Blue Shield and
Yeah, we
everybody
don't
else
send
did?
them a check.
And they haven't came back with no reasons whatsoever, huh?
So when does the policy renew?
We'll get the renewal rates at the end of June.
June?
Yeah, so the
July
end of
1st,
this month.
July 1st?
Yeah. I mean, if you guys want me to, I'm at summer conference next week and they have different vendors and stuff. Just want to look.
well, I think I know we're kind of running out of time, because we'll have to make a decision on next year soon too. I think it it would be prudent to get an explanation from Mitch. He should have some knowledge. Now, it sounds like if we're just getting the bill directly from Blue Cross, I mean, I think it will impact our ability to move forward with new plans if we don't understand what happened this year. So, and I know you're working on that. Yeah, I would have questions for him.
So I
Because
guess,
I don't think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. I guess I wasn't on the board, it's my second meeting. My other question is, was this brought up January 1st, January meetings, February, December meetings, that we were running above budget on the health insurance, that this was a problem back then?
No. Um, yeah, Mitch, I would expect he would have some insight into, like, the rates that they present us with, how locked in they are. I mean, we've never had this issue before, so did I always assume we were locked in and nothing ever changed, or was that actually locked in at the time we approved them? That I'm like looking back, I'm like, maybe I assumed and it just didn't change. But if he's not telling you that, then yeah, I think just more information we're gonna need. And then I think they give us, how do we usually do that? If they give us new rates, are they usually effective July 1st, or is it?
Yes, but like our open enrollment isn't until September 1st for our
Okay.
staff. So yes,
But-
they're effective, but for us,
Yeah,
we don't do, even like Kelly and I, we don't do our open enrollment until
so
September
you're just still
1st.
on that plan until we start on it.
So how much time do we have to find, if we can find, how much time do you have to start looking at different insurance? Just like literally 30 days? Not even?
Yeah.
That's not very
We
much
can
time.
start now.
Yeah, and like she said, she's gonna be at a conference and can reach out to other vendors that are there, see what other schools are doing, and, cause really, one thing we found in the past, or the last round we did this, was there are specific agencies or middlemen that do more with the school, like,
Mhm.
they work more in certain industries, and so they can be more helpful, to work with, if I remember right. But,
Madam Chair, and I have to remind you that I think, remember that it's a culmination of issues that is pushing administration to ask you for the withdrawal from the reserves of
Yeah.
142. So we did have that 3-year rolling average and loss of 130 kids that really impacted. And before the sport came into effect, we knew we were going to run into a problem this year. Especially since you took my suggestion of not cutting sports and not cutting programming here at this school, because that's why people left. And so we jumped into the next year and we said, we're not gonna go down that road because we gotta build our population politically. And so with that suggestion, we put us at a deficit from the beginning. We knew that we were gonna get hit by this. And then the septic tanks, we had some of that happen, and a legal issue. So there's a culmination of events here that is kind of speaking to it, it's just not insurance. That's one small
Yeah.
portion of that. And I do think it needs to be resolved and all that kind of thing, but just know that there are some other issues here, a little bit out of our control, a little bit based on my suggestion to an earlier board, that has put us in that. I think we projected maybe around 60 at tops, so we're well over that, and it is problematic. And we'll have to definitely trim. Our goal would be next year, when we approve our budget, to not overspend and put back into the interlocal. And that was our goal this year, but that's just kind of where we're at. A bit of a challenge.
I was just wondering, how do you replenish that interlocal fund?
So Ms. Roberts can speak to this, but last year at this time, we were sitting on some money and we could put money in. So
And putting it in.
generally speaking, we would spend it in next year's orders as best we can. And on top of that, we could maybe be sitting on 100 grand or 80 grand. And we would say, okay, you would make action to put that back into this fund.
Okay.
And build those reserves back up.
On this one, on going down to the library, I know you said it probably wasn't done right, but in the dues and fees, the 11,000, where does that, what the dues and fees, what are we paying for there?
Those
Our-
are all the
Go ahead. I know, we asked our librarian to teach a tech class, and a lot of that is our, tech curriculum.
Okay.
That they're learning in the tech lab, so a subscription to that. It's also our library software management system, where we check books out and we manage it there, so a lot of it's just that technical support.
So this just got missed put into the budget, okay? And then on the maintenance and supplies, when we have problems here, like on the school grounds, stuff that needs to be done, do you have like preferred contractors that you call, or is there like somebody that contracts the work out for you? How does that, like for price shopping basically? Because some people, like being in that industry, people hear it's a commercial property or anything like that, government facility, the prices jump up 30%,
We live with that, yeah.
30 to 50%.
Sure.
If it's a post office, the prices jump up almost literally 80%
Sure.
to what it would cost at a normal residential building. That being, I'm just like, some companies do that, some companies don't change their rates. I was just wondering.
So we've experienced both of that. I've experienced that in my short tenure in education. So by policy here, we have, if it's over X amount, 5,000 or something like that, we have to go out for 3 bids. So we generally follow policy for
Okay.
that. Now, I will tell you that, our maintenance man does have preferred customers and, vendors, excuse me. So yeah, we kind of danced with that a little bit. We also have vendors that are very familiar with our septic system, which is very complex, right? So he kind of dials those people in when we can, which there could be added expense.
No, that's understandable. I was just wondering how that worked.
Yeah, but no, you would force us, not you personally, but the board would force us to follow policy there on a major maintenance event.
Okay, it's not that bad really, because unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
It's not, I was just kind of curious on you guys' policy on that.
And that fits into my earlier, salting of the conversation, like with, did we bring on another teacher or not? But does that set us up later on next year, being able to put into the reserve account? So it's all kind of tied together a little bit. We really try to minimize that as much as possible so we can keep this fund where it needs to be for Lindsay Day.
I guess my comments on this, you know, like you're talking about septic system. I mean, that's
You got it.
right?
Yeah, thank
It's no different if it's here, your house, whatever. And that's why you have that fund is for when stuff that's not budgeted for happens. I guess my issue is, you know, like, for instance, I mean, I would want us, the health insurance, obviously, is, we knew that that was going to be an issue, or has been an issue throughout the year. And not having this discussion as to why is it an issue not 6 months ago, that we could have fixed it, and not either not paid it, or at least got a better understanding as to why we're paying this. So I guess, as far as like on that, since I wasn't here, on septic system issue, were bids taken on that, or we were just using a certain vendor because we wanted to, because they're familiar with the system?
A certain vendor,
I'm sorry.
a certain vendor that put it in and was familiar with it.
Okay. So can I suggest, or in the future, that we get bids from more than one vendor, even if we want to use the one, just to make sure that they are in market?
Correct.
One thing to add to that, like go to septic systems, they can go to the Riverstone Health, get a map of that septic system, where even somebody that doesn't work in the septic system can read it and totally understand what
There should be a
what that
blueprint
looks
of it
like.
somewhere.
Absolutely, it's his blueprint, just like when it got, I mean,
It's true, but my house doesn't have one on file with
Well,
the county,
so, well, it being a government building, it has to be inspected. Once it's inspected, they make the blueprint off it when they come out and inspect it. I'm just trying to, like, I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody is $1,000 cheaper, like, there's two companies out there particular, I need to remember that we're recorded, so I can't mention no names, but there's two companies particular. One of them charges $100 more to come, like, this is personal. You call them, one charges $100 more to come clean your septic system versus $100 here is $100, you know what I mean?
I totally agree, and I think it's important that you would hold us to task there, so I think it's a great suggestion.
Right, and I'm not saying to always use the cheapest person, because in my experience, when you get cheapest bid, it's usually the cheapest service, right? But at least you get a ballpark of where A to B and what's in the market.
Well, I mean, I do know we had discussed this, we knew this was coming, to an extent. I think there was an aspect that was not for sure, cause you don't know. We had made, in my opinion, I was on the board, so I can say it, but we made good choices during COVID and when we had extra funding, and we put that money back into the infrastructure of the school. And that's how we were able to save what we have in the interlocal now. In fact, I think we created that fund about that time, like we didn't have that before, it was done differently.
It's about 2020.
Yeah, okay, so I was like, we made plans, and I think it's not just, we have expenses that come up, but it's the bigger picture too of, we did lose quite a bit of students, and when you have a small school, every student leaving can impact our budget, and the continuation of not passing levies. I mean, this is why it is so important, and as many different ways as we've tried to communicate that with our constituents, it hasn't resonated. So we're not quite hitting that mark with them yet. So I mean, I think we definitely have opportunity to pare down. I think we'll have to next year. For what makes sense. And I think Danny had good ideas already, you know, it's a lunch fund and some of those things that came up, but I also know that across the board and things are costing more, so, you know, we're gonna have some restriction on how, you know, what our supplies are costing and those things. So, you know, I am thankful that we have this fund, honestly, just that we have it, and I think, you know, I would hope we can get back to where we've been the last few years, where we can just put money in at the end of the year and we're not taking out. But we're gonna have hard decisions, I think, as we approach the budget this year.
So we said we lost at least 30 kids over a couple year time frame, or what was 1 year? And then
That was one.
ballpark, like what's the revenue per student that we've lost? What would that 30 kids result in as far as hit to the budget?
Close to 13, yeah, I think 12, 13.
Yeah, so junior high, you get more money for a junior high student. But it's a lot of money, and actually, I think.
And we said it was a primary result of activities being cut, or what were the
There
justifications for that?
there were a lot of, I think, political or other things going on, and, you know, I don't know all the reasons why people, some people that live in the district chose to go to like other rural districts like Elder Grove or Elysian, where they could get in, and for whatever their personal reasons were, it was the same time we were having a transition in our administration, and we had some there was a lot of transition coming out of COVID, and so one of the things that did change is we had to make a tough budget decision, and we cut funding for the extracurriculars. A community partner, the bank stepped up with funds and helped fund it, like, on their own. They saw the need, and so we didn't actually go without, but it didn't come out of our budget that year. This past year, we made the decision to use some of our interlocal money to continue that, because it was important for, I mean, it really does help build the community here. So I don't know if that's, I know for a fact that wasn't the only reason that some people chose to go other places, but they're coming back.
Yeah, I guess that's the bigger question. That's, I mean, we're seeing
Seeing an
growth
increase.
as far as students at this point.
Yeah, we are. So you know, we're gonna, but there's always a lag, because you're doing averages of student counts, and so the funding is a lag of that. So we're coming up, our average went up. So the numbers from this year aren't gonna pay out for another year, is that, remind me?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
students from this year, and we fund next year. And then we also go off the 3-year average for our, for what we get for our general fund. So it all plays into each other.
That loss of students affected the 3-year average, which impacted us this year. We increased our student population up by, I wanna say it was like almost 20. So we should benefit from that this coming year. I think Ms. Roberts said 40 plus. So all that is moving in the right direction, which would allow us then maybe start making contributions back to the interlocal. But
So
this-
when you
this
get
lower
hit by that, it just doesn't affect you 1 year. If you're taking that 3-year average, it really affects you.
I got one more on the overtime. Who is here, like, who gets paid overtime? Like, what staff in the school get paid overtime wages?
There are generally 2 people that accrue overtime, and that's our maintenance person and our kitchen person.
Okay, both important. I was just
but that's one area where I think we can also address the ask is, and the guideline is, all overtime needs to be approved out of our office. And, I don't necessarily know if that's happening to the degree that we would like.
You mentioned something, cutting back in the, on the lunch fund. Like, well, what are you seeing as waste? What are you thinking of cutting back? Are you like cutting back like portions and meals, cutting back like
No, cause that
extra-
goes into your school nutrition
Okay,
fund, you
okay,
have to have certain portion
okay.
sizes. But like, so like our salad bar, that's extra right now, that doesn't deal with school nutrition fund,
Right.
Like the school nutrition program. So the salad bar is just something extra that we provide our students, and I don't wanna get rid of it completely, because it is a benefit for our students and it is healthy food.
Mhm.
But just cutting it back, you know, maybe serving it just to the junior high students, because they're really the ones that actually eat. A lot of our younger kids, like some of them do eat it, but a lot of like, you know, like kindergarten and stuff, while it's good to get them introduced to those foods, you know, it's always that give and take. A lot of them do waste it too. Or maybe keep it open for all students and don't have it every single day. You know, maybe have it once a week. Or, you know, just different options on being able to cut it back, because there's a ton of food that goes onto the salad bar every day. Between fruits and veggies and sauces. And, you know, little extras like sunflower seeds and that sort of thing, and croutons. It's a lot of extra food every single day, and a lot of it, you know, like the salad and the fruits, you can't keep that very long, so you're buying it a lot.
Right.
So that was an idea.
Fresh fruit's expensive.
Yeah.
And we could go to commodity for canned peaches,
Yeah.
whatever,
So
pears.
that was an idea. You know, maybe paring back, you know, all of the fun stuff that we do in there is so wonderful, but maybe paring it back a little bit. Again, not getting rid of it, because it's great for our students, but
Right.
just paring it back.
I was just gonna switch from Michael's, okay.
Won't you pass on?
No, that's just general fund.
Okay.
But, so I can just tell you guys, usually the lunch fund at the end of the year is around 50,000 that we have to transfer over. This year it was about 85.
Cool.
Yeah.
Increase in food, like prices in food is contributing factor, I'm sure. The big one.
It is,
Food,
especially
yeah.
with the fresh fruits.
I mean, they're healthier than the canned version.
Correct.
I mean, I feed my kids fresh foods over canned. I mean, I don't have any that stuff in it, so. But
You understand.
that's an expensive,
What was the sewer cost to do that?
The which one?
The sewer?
I don't have that one listed down, but I can get it if you need to.
Yeah, I could just briefly run it through this. We're not close to that 141 mark, so I'm just trying to figure out where those other pieces are coming. But if this lunch and the sewer were substantial enough, probably close.
Right, so I have it on a sticky note, so how I came up with the 141,875, that is, so because it's in our master agreement that staff don't pay for any lunches that they get from the cafeteria. Part of with our auditor is that money has to come from somewhere, right? If they're not paying for it, that money has to come from somewhere. So the general fund has to transfer that money back to Fund 112 because you're having to pay for those lunches. So that is when I equated how many staff meals were charged, how many were tracked, because that's another thing that has to be tracked for the auditor, and what is charged for an adult meal. That's $8,875 that we make transfer over. Like I said, the food fund is 85,000. And then when you take out what we have positively balanced right now in our general fund, what we're positively sitting on for an end fund right now, For the rest of the admin classified in claims that we still need to pay for the rest of June, it's roughly $48,000. And that's where that 141 and change is coming from. That's where that ask is coming from. The contributing factors was just to show you that's not what the interlocal fund was asking to fix. That was just showing you
Why we're not at a deficit.
why it is getting there, yeah. They ate, I was gonna say. But actually, that's about how much last year's transfer was, yeah.
And just so I think, don't they pay, that's considered a benefit, they pay tax. That's
They
taxable
are
income.
taxed on it twice a year. They're taxed, at the end of the year and also in December. So they do have to be taxed on it, by law.
Yeah.
But then this has to be done by law also because that fund has to receive that revenue.
Sharon's a good cook, if anybody hasn't had that.
What do we pay for an adult meal? It's like
$5.
$5. It's well worth $5. What walks out of there?
So I know that was combining two items on the docket, but they kind of went together. But I know it's not a fun conversation, but it is a conversation that have to be.
Thanks for putting the numbers together, Danny.
Yeah, sorry, the one is so tiny.
Madam Chair, I just have to reiterate, I love the questions. It's very good for us. Keeps us on our toes, and I think we'll get better from it, so keep asking. It's good stuff.
How much money will you be left with in the general fund, do you think, if we're taking that money from this?
So that's kind of a hard question to answer because what's left over in the general fund at the end of June, regardless of whatever it is, would get reappropriated
Okay, so it would go back into.
because you're starting a new year.
Okay,
Yeah. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it kind of doesn't matter what we have in there
Right.
because it would be real.
I was just wondering, like, if there's a stem from amount, if we could put it back into the, you know what I mean?
Oh, put
Like,
it back into the
yeah,
local?
like, let's say if you were to get like the refund back from Blue, which part, I mean, never say never, but if you were to get like a refund back from
Oh, the Blue Cross Blue
Blue
Shield.
Shield, if we could maybe put it back
Right.
into interlocal.
So just say, this doesn't have to be just an end of year thing. So say that the Blue Cross Blue Shield thing, say it gets figured out, but it gets figured out in July,
Mhm.
which is technically the start of the new year.
Mhm.
You could just vote to put that money back into the interlocal. You don't have to wait for June
Okay,
to do that.
But the 141 is basically budget neutral, that's the general idea.
Yeah.
Correct.
if you didn't have that money, in interlocal, where would you get the funds from?
Then
If
we
we-
would be
if-
calling the state and talking, well, I would be calling the state and talking to them, just like any school that
Okay.
starts running, into a deficit any year.
Do you, and if the state gives you relief, you have to
They
pay that
don't
back
give,
with your
no,
state?
it's not them giving you relief.
I'm just-
It's
yeah,
them
yeah,
helping you
yeah.
to figure out like, where else can you, like, what else can you code from, what else can you do, is there,
They would reduce our budget next year.
I didn't know if they would like give you money with interest or something, I didn't know how that literally worked.
wish.
Okay.
Put us on probation.
Yeah.
Then if it's not resolved, then they might come in and take over the district. I mean, to that extreme. But generally what they would do on the first look would be, all right, you're over X amount, we're gonna subtract this from your next year's budget, figure it out.
Okay. Thanks for
And
answering the questions.
we'd be a top full story and that,
Good thing no one reads the paper, right?
Yeah.
right, then you'd have
Amen, bro.
then you'd have a conversation about superintendencies.
Yeah, I'm new here, I just had those questions, I was just wondering,
No, they're great
like, what
questions.
happens?
It happens a lot more than you think about schools being in deficits. They just have to.
Because with tight funding, it's hard to save for a rainy day, on a regular basis.
Especially when you don't pass levies, right? So we're at a huge disadvantage of not passing levies. You think of like a Bozeman. Bozeman passes levies, and that money stays with that district for a long time. And District 2's at a disadvantage because they're not passing levies in comparison to like the other double A's. And it's just hard with the funding structure in Montana, the way the legislature operates for these small schools to make it. And like you said, just our maintenance supplies, wax, cleaning supplies, toilet paper, all that kind of stuff has gone up. And Earl comes into my office, he goes, I've never had to order more toilet paper at this time of year. Are we using more? Well, no, it's just costing more. We're not getting as much. So all these things really put pressure on kind of the overall budget.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of look for reasons why, and we want to own some of it because we didn't project correctly or whatever it is, you know. It's just it is a guessing game at times.
Going back to where you buy like supplies from, do you have specific vendors, or like do you have like for buying toiletries and buying like consumables for stuff like that? Do you have just specific vendors you can buy from, or can you buy like select from different vendors?
I don't know if I can answer that succinctly or accurately. I would think,
You don't have to have specific vendors just because you're a school.
Okay.
I do know that Earl has preferred vendors, just like with me buying the supplies. We usually always talk to a few of the companies out here, and we do price check them a few times through the year. But I usually always go back to the same one every time, because for the bulk price,
Right.
they're cheaper or they're better.
Okay.
So both Earl and I usually have the same ones that we'll go to, but you don't have to go through a specific company.
we did have an issue with, we might be seeing our cleaning guy out there, so we go with the cleaning company, right? And one of the things that we found is it was my complaint that we were running out of toilet paper in some of the bathrooms and paper towels. Like, why are we doing that? Well, it came to us that our cleaning crew wouldn't change them, right? Till they were down to the last little bit. So then we said, no, we don't want that. We gotta have you make sure we don't run out. And we have dispensers that have 2 or 3 in there. It's the paper towels. Well, then come to find out they're putting new ones in every night.
Yeah, they took it the other way.
And so then we had all these half rolls everywhere, right? And they're kind of like, where are they going? And so I'm sure that cost a little money, until we got that corrected. But it's little stuff like that that just kind of eat away at the budget. I'm going, wow. And it frustrates our maintenance person because generally he runs a very tight ship. So we're trying to get those things resolved. But with the cost of paper towels and everything, it just costs a lot right now. Hard to pinpoint, but there are a couple big issues that hit us hard.
is not an action item. Not, not the year budget summary, we've kind of jumped down.
Yeah, just the budget summary is not an action.
Not an
item.
action, or the budget projections. We
Haven't
haven't
gotten
got
there
to
yet.
that yet. Okay, so we'll move on then to the budget projections.
Promise, this is a better talk. So this is the other three packet sheets that I gave you guys. So the first one that I'll kind of hit on a little bit says budget report fiscal year 25. That one is this year's, it's kind of larger. The reason that I printed this one out is so that you would start getting a feel of what the budget report looks like, because for next year, it's gonna come out in August. So I wanted to give you what this year's looked like so that you can kind of get a little familiar with it, so that when we talk about it in August, you kind of already see what it looks like, okay? So this is what this year's was, and these are just copies, that's why you guys don't have the signatures on that first page. But it tells you, you know, what our A and B was, our taxable valuation. And then that first page is that summary, which shows you what all of our funds are, what the adopted budgets for them were, what the reserves were, and it shows you which funds can have reserves, which are great. Okay. And so like Martin, when you were asking, you know, what happens if we had any money at the end of the year, what happens to it? So that's where it comes in column F, and it says unreserved fund balance reappropriated. That's what happens, it just gets reappropriated back. And then it also shows the district mill levies on there. So we have quite a few funds, and when we talk about like what our budget is, it's usually always referencing what the general fund budget amount is, because that's what always gets voted on. That's what, again, is always the heavy hitter. But you can see what the total of all funds is at the bottom, on the bottom left, that we worked with this year for all of our funds. There are a few funds on there that, even though they are on there, they're not active funds, but they have to be listed on there because they do have a balance. So like the adult education fund is not active. It has sat at that amount since I've been here. But it has that balance. It hasn't been used because it's very, very specific on what you're allowed to use it on. So it just sits there. The technology fund is active. But we do try to not use it as much as we can. So like when we buy computers and stuff, we usually do actually take it out of our general fund, because the amount that we receive for revenue from the state for our tech fund is not a lot. And so we only try to hit our tech fund as limited as possible, like if we only have to, or you know, if it's needed. Tuition, that one you're gonna see change quite a bit this coming year because of the laws that passed with it. So those numbers are gonna fluctuate quite a lot this coming year. So going into the next few pages, it really breaks down each of the funds. So the first couple pages are the general fund, and it breaks down what makes up the general fund, what the revenues are. That's what that top part is. That's what all of your revenues are that make it up. And it also tells you at the top what the A and B is, what our enrollment was. The bottom part shows you the prior year, so this was last year, and then the current year. So that's where it's getting into like what your maximum budget is, your base budget, your highest budget with a vote, your highest budget without a vote, and yes, all those numbers are different. Usually for us, our general fund budget is the highest budget without a vote, because that's when a levy fails. That's what our adopted budget is. The board does not have to vote to have that highest amount, you can always go less. I don't know why you would, but you can always vote to go less than that highest amount. And then it tells you, of course, what the adopted budget was by the board. Going into the next page, it again goes over, this is just more of a breakdown of that summary page. It just goes into more detail about your reserves, about your unreserved fund balance, reappropriated. And then it's going into your base budget. And again, these are just breaking down all of those amounts, all of those revenues that are making up your general fund. Okay? So I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time going page for page on this document, because I want you to take it home and look through it in preparation for August. The last bit that I'm gonna go over is that page 5 of the general fund, because the last bit is just showing you the levy part. These are the mills that make up what our voters are voting on. Those are the mills that they're voting on that make up the levy portion, okay? And then it just goes into every single fund doing this, showing you exactly what is making up every single fund for revenue, okay? So that's what this document is, and like I said, this is this year. Okay, so then we're gonna go into the one that has the yellow and the purple on it. Now, Amy and Kelly have seen this one because this is what we used when we were looking at the levy and setting those numbers for the election. This one showed what the proposed budgets for each fund were gonna be, what the increases from this year to next year for each fund that I was recommending. Some of them are gonna say 0 because they're funds that the community have to vote on. And that means I don't set that increase, that's a formula that has to be done. So like the first page, mine got caught up. Never mind, the first page doesn't have the general fund because again, that has to be voted on. So this first page is the transportation fund. I didn't do any increase on this one for next year, because based on historically what we spent this year on the transportation fund, we did very, very well. We didn't even hit close to what our budget was with the expenses that we had. So there are not any incoming unexpected expenses next year. So we felt that going into next year, the same budget was going to be appropriate. It also keeps it from hitting our taxpayers even harder. So that's why that one didn't have any increase going into next year.
Quick
Or-
question.
yeah.
Do we think part of the savings is for daily?
For transportation.
Yeah.
I can't give a definitive answer on that because there's not a lot of data on it.
Gut. Gut feeling.
We wanna say it.
Okay, we don't have to answer.
But
without
we
the
had
data.
also padded it the previous year because that's when we started getting the arms, that's when we started getting,
The cost of fuel, we were.
the fuel was going, yeah. So we had padded a little bit the previous year and then, we didn't have as many expenses or as high of expenses as we thought. Okay. The next one is our tuition fund, and this one had the highest increase going into next year. It is a permissive fund, which means that we set the increase, it's not voted on. This one was a 15% increase, and that again is because of the new law that changed. And that is where all of the school districts are taking on the tuition fees instead of parents. And that is by law, and that is a formula equation set by the state. Where we can't just say, oh, we'll just charge $200. It's a formula set by the state where we have to charge other schools a specified amount of money, and they have to charge us a specified amount of money for out-of-district students. And we haven't had a full circle yet to see how that's actually gonna affect us. The full circle is actually coming right now this June. So that's why we bumped it up so high, especially because we have such a high population of out-of-district students. And we don't know how many of our resident students are going out of district until June every year. And it's always a year in arrears. So all of the bills for this year are going to be paid next year. So that's why it's a 15% increase, because I'm starting to get the bills in now. That's why that one is the highest percentage increase.
It'll be interesting to see the numbers, cause I don't think we've ever known how many go out of district.
No, not yet, and so that is getting tracked now, which is kind of nice. Even though it is a lot of work to track it. Yeah. It's a lot of work to track it. The next one is the retirement fund. This one was conservative. It was a 5% increase, just like the previous year. And that is because, we do want to equate for, the salaries going up, and how that affects the retirement fund with the formula. But we don't have any projected retirements for next year. So that's why it was more of a conservative increase for next year, just keeping up with the salary projection. And then the tech one doesn't have a projected increase on there. That one is the only way that you can get a technology fund increase is by going out for a tech fund levy. The last time that we went out for a tech fund levy was my first or second year here.
I was gonna say that was the last levy we passed, right?
Yeah.
The tech fund levy.
And it did pass, but it was a short one.
Yeah.
So that one is just the revenue that's given to us by the state, and as you can see, it is very, very small. It's less than $1,500, so that's why we don't hit it anymore than we have to.
We can get one Chromebook with it, is that per
Two-
year?
Two right now with the price that they're at.
Two Chromebooks per year. And every 20 years we replace all that we have, right?
The next one is the flexibility fund. This one, again, doesn't have any increase. This one is one of those that we have a balance in, but is basically a non-used fund. It just sits there. Debt service fund is Fund 50. We don't have any more debt at all. That got paid off 2 years ago. 2 years ago now.
We had a party.
We did have a party. Well,
Community
we
barbecue.
had a barbecue. This is just, the reason this has a balance is because of that audit finding that came up. This is interest that has been getting put into this fund. So that's why this has a balance. And then the last one is the building reserve fund. And this one has both. So you levy this one, but it also has a portion of it that is permissively levied, which means that you set it. So it's a little bit of both. So the part that is, the part that you get to kind of mess with and finagle a little bit is the state major maintenance aid, which you'll see on that revenue portion. And that part, while it is a formula, it does change every single year. And so this, for the coming year, it's the $40,740. And so that's the revenue that's gonna go in for this coming year. And that was a slightly bit higher than this year, which is great. It's always nice when that's higher. Because there was talk during this legislative session about possibly getting rid of SMMA, so I'm glad that they actually kept it, because that's a huge portion. I mean, that's the only revenue that we're getting out of this fund, besides going out for an actual levy. So it's nice that they decided to keep it for now at least. So like I said, that's kind of the permissive levy, quote unquote, side of this. The other side of this fund is going out for an actual levy. And that's why there's not a percentage number in there. So those are the increases that were done when we had to put out the, information to the voters. The last piece, this is only 3 sheets, so it's very thick, is the preliminary budget data sheet that came out post-session from the end of the legislative session with the, government. This shows you what our hard numbers, our final numbers are for the general fund budget for this coming year, okay? So again, it goes over what that breakdown is, for the revenues that make up the general fund. The biggest part that you wanna look at is page 2 in the middle section, okay? So like I said, there's always the base budget, maximum budget, and then the highest budget with a vote and highest budget without a vote, okay? Again, we are usually always the highest budget without a vote because our levy always fails, okay? So you'll see that our general fund budget for next year is the 1,866,239.38. And that is just shy of $40,000 more than this year. It's 39,436.08. So that's great. It went up, which we were expecting it to go up because of adopting the STARS Act. Okay, saying that we were going to do the STARS Act, we were expecting it to go up. I will say that that is not the case for every single school that decided to do the STARS Act, because some of them were doing the Teach Act. Theirs actually went down because they lost the Teach Act while doing the STARS Act and committed to more money because they kept both on the reports and they lost money. So it's great that ours went up. That's great, especially since our levy didn't pass. Like, because I'll remind you, between last year and this year, our budget went down with the levy failing. So it is great that our budget went up. Okay, we're going on the uphill slope. Obviously, the highest budget with a vote number would have been better, but I'm just happy that our budget is going up the way that it should be. The other part that I do want to mention that I had a talk with Roger, who is another business manager. He's a self-contracted business manager, and he deals with Blue Creek's finances. He's also the one that oversees the interlocal fund for the 4 schools. He was helping me look over the original round of the preliminary budget data sheets, because this is like round 4. When he was looking at on the first page, where it says fiscal year 26 and then 3-year average A and B, we have always taken the 3-year average A and B because it's better numbers for us. When you see that for A and B entitlement, you'll see that it's larger, okay? When I pulled the last 2 data sheets plus this data sheet, I noticed a trend that it's actually going down. So I asked him, why is it going down if our A and B is going up? Shouldn't it go up? And so he was explaining it to me that all that means is that in the next year or 2, we'll probably have to switch over to the other side, which we've never done. It's not bad. It just means that the other choice for us is going to be a better option in the next couple years, which again, like I said, is not bad. That's why they have the 2 options for you to do, where you can do the yearly per A and B entitlement or the 3-year average per entitlement. I just wanted to add that in there because I thought that was pretty interesting, because for the 11 years I've been here, that's never been an option. So I just wanted to add that in there. So please take these home, especially the budget report, and review and get comfortable with it, so that when August does come and we go through the budget report for the coming year, we can go through those numbers go through that report a little easier. Does anybody have questions on the projections for next year between these three reports?
It doesn't even, I mean, we had to take money out of the fund this year. And the numbers just, I don't know, I'll take it home, take a look at things for next time. Because for me, it doesn't make any sense if the budget only increases that much and you have to take money out this year. With everything going up in prices, you're gonna have to take more money out next year. So at this rate, I mean, I hate being negative here, but there's no way of replenishing the fund.
It's part of mine and Kelly's
Yeah.
job.
That's
They're
because
working
it's
with
serious.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, the kids need to eat. Huh?
I'll put it into perspective, the school that I was talking about earlier that had that STARS Act
Mhm.
with their preliminary budget data report. So because their budget number went down for their general fund, before even getting their budget report, they're already looking at $100,000 deficit for next year.
That's hurtful.
It is, and I'm not meaning this, as a shock and awe sort of thing. It's just the world of school finance, unfortunately, this is what happens every year, unfortunately, and that's our job, that's my job, is to figure these numbers out.
It's just all new to me, so.
Nope,
I
and
mean,
that's why we do it.
It's just,
That's why we have these questions, that's why we go over the reports.
I still have a lot of questions. Look at it, that's why I go to this conference. A lot different. Okay. All right, so, that was the budget projections. So now we have, our next item is the interlocal fund transfer. It is action. So Danny gave us that information. Is there anything more?
Unless there's
Any more questions? Does everyone understand what the ask is for the fund transfer?
Just elephant in the room, can't keep doing it, so this is basically a one and done. Yeah. That's all I have to say about it. Obviously, I'm new to it, didn't have a lot of oversight over the previous year or so, but yeah, 141, that's not okay.
I did it, going back over, I can't help but ask, there was this deal in there, this memberment deal, that negative one in there, is that all part of Blue Cross Blue Shield as well?
Which one are you?
At this page, I only have 2 pages, so I'm glad I only have 2 pages, that's all I see. On the accidental death and life, dismemberment insurance, is that also Blue Cross Blue Shield? On that life insurance?
No, that's a separate one, that's Guardian.
Okay. Or am I looking at the right line? Yeah, okay, yeah, I was just wondering if that was also Blue Cross Blue Shield. Okay, perfect. I see the positive there, I was like, it's kind of crazy that they inject that one up too. If it's
No,
same
that,
variety.
that's a separate company. And, yeah, so I only put the biggest contributing factors down, like, when something goes over like a little bit on one of these lines, like I said, these are just budgeted internally. I don't worry about it if it goes like a little over, so if it's like these ones where they go a lot.
Can you do us a favor and try, I know you've done your deal, but can you try digging and on that Blue Cross Blue Shield deal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Do we have a motion to approve an interlocal fund transfer of $141,875?
I so move.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Next item is classified staff contract renewals. So we, will go through each one as a separate motion. Are there any questions before we, do you wanna know what they all do? Any questions about?
I would like to know what they do.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you.
It's a Madam Chair and
Yeah.
Oh, it's
members of the board. So going down, employee A is our administrative assistant. She's in the front office. She really is an administrative assistant for both Ms. Roberts and I. Also secretarial services in the front office. Mr. Ross, or employee B, is our maintenance person, a daytime custodian. Employee C is our kitchen manager. Employee D is a paraprofessional in our special education department. Ms. Willems, or employee E, is the same, a para in our special education department. Employee F is a para in our education or special education department. Employee G is our para that was assigned to our intermediate wing, and I spoke to earlier about supporting maybe a larger class size in the third grade if we go down that road. She also is a para in our special education department. And employee H is our school nurse.
Do we have a motion to approve a contract renewal for, what can I say, employee A, or do I need to say?
You can say her name.
Is it Ally? Let me just go back. There's two people that have a similar name, and one is Alicia, and one is Alicia, so that's what I was. Ally, do we have a motion to approve a contract renewal for Ally Schwartz?
So move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve a contract renewal for Earl Ross.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve a contract renewal for Sharon Lose.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve a contract renewal for Elizabeth Work.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion to approve a contract renewal for Laura Willems.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have a motion for a contract renewal for Margaret Hagstrom.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion for a contract renewal for Jacqueline Scanlon.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have a motion for a contract renewal for Wendy Shoemaker.
I so move.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We didn't have any committee updates for this meeting, or we did decide to remove policy from this meeting as well, just as we continue to go through some of these heavier topics, saving policies, and we'll have a backlog at some point we'll catch up on reviewing those and getting them up to date. Consent agenda. Do we have any questions on the consent agenda? I don't have the two numbers. I would love that.
So it's 42332 through 42359, and then with canceled check 41984.
we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so moved.
Second it.
Any further questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We didn't have any public comment tonight. Agenda items for next meeting.
Okay, so the next meeting is scheduled for July 10th. So obviously we have committee updates. We do have that. Have we heard back from Emily?
Oh, he's working.
Okay, so it's still tentative then for the July 24th.
Correct.
Approve any out of districts, approve possibly insurance for next year. The board needs to set lunch fees for next year, for the next school year. Approve the student handbook for next school year. And then these next two, I'm not sure if you want on there, they are on the purple sheet, but because of the changeover and because of the plan, I'm just not sure. So on the purple sheet, there is develop goals - superintendent goals. I don't know if you want that on there because of the strategic planning that you guys are gonna do. And then the other one is evaluate prior year board performance. Okay, so those two are on the purple sheet. I just don't know about this.
Purple sheet is our guide. Kind of things that get done the same month every year.
Standard work.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I don't. I feel like I need a refresher on where we left off with Emily to remember where we're gonna be jumping into that conversation. And then, yeah, if your goals would play into that, that would be good. Either at that meeting or even just when we do our strategy, we do it then. Yeah. Are we expecting any hires we need to approve?
I don't put it on there. I just, at this point, we
Okay.
have.
So, insurance, that'll be something we're gonna have to look at. As far as, we're gonna have to have more information, I think, before we're ready to.
And it was just cause it's on the purple sheet.
Yeah.
That's just why.
So I think at the very least, if we have to have it on there for information, if we're not voting, but.
And I think like that one, like I said, open enrollment for us isn't till the beginning of the school year. So if it has to be pushed back a little bit, whether it's the end of July or, begin, if that's okay, as long as it's ready to go for when staff are here.
Yeah. Okay. Alright, well, I don't think I have anything else. Anybody have any burning topics that they, you can always reach out if you think of something. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? There's nothing else?
I so moved.
Second it.
All in favor?
Okay, only one of you can, so who did it?
He did it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're free to go.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thanks for putting up with the questions.
Oh, I love it. I really do like it.